So thank you again so much for joining us on this beautiful summer day, everyone. I love to see all the families and all the kids and all the dogs in the chat. How wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sam and I'm from the Algonquin College events team. Before we begin, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping notes. To stay connected to the Algonquin College community, please be sure to tune into our other live virtual events that you can find through our events calendar, and we'll share the link in the chat to that now. Today's event is equipped with closed captioning if you need it. To turn on closed captioning, please press the CC icon along the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Throughout Emma's presentation today, please feel free to ask any questions. To do so, you can raise your virtual hand, and we'll unmute you, and then you can ask your question out loud, or you can type your question in the chat, and I'll read it out loud from there. But we will have a more formal Q&A session at the end of the event if you want to hold your question until then too. Today's event is being recorded. The recording will be available to watch on the AC Hub on demand website in the coming days, and we'll share a link to that in the chat now. And to kick off today's event and to break the ice a little bit, we're going to give everyone a fun question to answer in the chat. So please answer the question by typing your answer in the chat, and ensure you are typing to both panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your answer. So the question is, what is your favorite breed of dog and why? Okay, folks, let's see your answers. What is your favorite breed of dog and why? Rescue, every dog needs a loving home. Bernese Mountain Dog, I love Bernese Mountain Dogs, they're gorgeous. Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, all the dogs, I totally feel that. Rottweiler, all Spaniels. Golden Retriever, I love Golden Retrievers. Woodle, oh, I've never heard of a Woodle before. Portuguese water dogs, Chihuahuas, I love Chihuahuas. Akbash, my dog is a 1-year-old Akbash mix. And Schnauzer, Corgi, I love Corgis. They're little bums when they walk, it's so cute. Bulldog, Golden Retriever, Bichon, Great Pyrenees. That's awesome, folks. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, everyone. So we are going to get started with our event with Emma Murdock here, but before we do that, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction. So we are joined today by Emma Murdock from Walk With Me Ottawa. Emma is the founder, owner, and operator of Walk With Me Ottawa, which is Ottawa's leading dog training and walking and boarding company. Walk With Me Ottawa has 15 dog walkers, 6 dog trainers, and 46 acres of private fenced-in land. Plus, they are currently building a facility to better serve their clients. Emma hosts and attends workshops with some of the best dog trainers around the world, and she also competes in various dog sports. Emma is also the founder of Frostbite Working Dog Club, which is Ottawa's only protection sports association club, which is a highly competitive sport involving bite work and precision obedience. How cool is that? That is so cool. And so I'd now like to hand the floor over to Emma for her presentation. Take it away, Emma, and thank you again for joining us.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest. I'm going to make this like kind of informal, hopefully, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. There's a few things I wanted to sort of touch on that I think are really, really important for dog owners to know about. That is also probably not something that's super easily accessible or really, well known, or even certain things that are sort of like myths in the dog world. So I wanted to sort of touch on those things, but I also wanted to give you a little bit more history about me and how I kind of got involved in this in the first place. So I graduated from Carleton University in 2012. And I was working a bunch of various jobs. I was working like in retail and in the restaurant industry, and I was working at a doggy daycare and in real estate, a whole bunch of different jobs. And the doggy daycare was where I really sort of started to, I guess, like foster my passion for dogs. I grew up always, wanting to work with animals. I wanted to be a vet, but I am not cut out for like the medical field at all. It's not a good situation for me. So working at the doggy daycare kind of opened the door for me to realize that there are other potential jobs in the dog industry. And so I decided I wanted to start a dog walking company. And I told my parents, and they said, hell no, you're not starting a dog walking company with your degree. I did communications at Carleton, and I went ahead and did it anyway. And basically I like made a website. I like quit my full-time job. I gave my 2 weeks notice. I made a website, and I kind of like, crossed my fingers and hoped. And clients started coming in slowly, quickly actually. And we expanded very fast. Within like 2 months, I had hired my first dog walker. And then a few months later, I had hired 3 or 4 more. And then it just sort of continued to grow that way, like exponentially. We also do in-home boarding. So that was another thing that we kind of started doing before we branched out into training. And so with training, I was always sort of apprehensive about offering it. I felt sort of like an imposter. I had friends of mine that were dog trainers, and I didn't really want to like step on any toes. And I'd started going to some workshops just to learn more. And I was hiking like groups of dogs at this point. And I have my own little dog. You can't really see her because she's black, but she's right there in the corner. Her name is Cricket. And we were doing various different sports and activities and trying things out. And I started going to these workshops and started realizing that like I was really passionate about training. And so I kind of just started doing that for my existing walking clients. And then that just sort of grew and grew and grew. And in the last, year or two, well, really 2 years, it's really grown a lot. With COVID, things have gone crazy actually with training and boarding all of a sudden. So yeah, I don't know, it's been great. Everyone who had a dog got another dog, and everyone who didn't have a dog got a dog. So the industry's really boomed in the last year. I have 4 dogs on my own now. So I have Cricket. She's a standard Schnauzer, who I said is right there in the corner. She's about 6 years old. I also have a 15-year-old dog. He's a standard Schnauzer as well. His name is George, and he was my now husband's family dog. And when we bought our house, he moved in with us. So he's been around. He's very old, but he still, does his thing. And then I have a giant Schnauzer who is turning 2 next week. His name is Toro. And I have a Malinois named Riggs, and he is 2.5. He came to me through someone on Instagram. They messaged me asking if I had any interest in a Malinois, and it was the very, very beginning of COVID when this happened. We were all in lockdown. We weren't doing anything. No one was doing anything. And I thought, okay, well, fostering this dog would be fun. I'd always wanted a Malinois, but I wasn't at a place where I wanted to get another dog because I already had 3. And so I brought him home, and he never left because he was just so great. He fit into our life so well. He's an amazing dog. And so I do protection sport with Toro and with Riggs, the Malinois. And I do agility with Cricket. And I also do barn hunt and scent detection and dock diving and various other sports like that with all of them. And so, we're pretty busy. We do a lot of things. I do not have children, and I do not plan to have children. I have my dogs. And so, yeah, that's kind of the story about, how I've sort of got into this world. And that was 8 years ago now. So Walk With Me is celebrating our 8-year anniversary at the end of the month. And the PSA Club, the Protection Sport Association Club, we've been at it for about 1.5 years. And that has been like quite the journey, just because we've really kind of had to do it on our own and figure it out and not have a lot of like in-person help because of COVID. We haven't been able to travel and attend workshops, and even bringing people in has been really challenging. Yeah, I can go into that a little bit more. If anyone is curious about anything that I've already said, you can just, put your hand up or comment in the chat. And so I wanted to go into a few different topics. The first one I want to talk about is socialization, because socialization is this thing that people think they know what it is, and most of the time they're wrong. And if you do it wrong, it can create a lot of problems. So the really key thing about socialization is that you want to be exposing your dog to sights, sounds, and surfaces. And so actually Shelley was talking about how Jessie was really uncomfortable with the different flooring types at the college. And that's a really great example of, you know, like when you have a young puppy, like teaching them about different surfaces, right? Like grates, sewer grates, and like slippery floors versus carpets and stairs and wobbly surfaces, all of that kind of stuff. It's really important to work them through that when they're young. And that's just like one example of how doing that when they are young, or you can start at any time, but doing it when they're puppies is really, really important. And that's a confidence building exercise. And what socialization really is, it's sort of like misnamed because it's not about being social. It's actually about being confident and exposure to things. So it's like less about interaction. A lot of people think socialization means like meeting dogs and meeting people. And actually, it's sort of the opposite of that, because when you do that, when you have your dog meeting a lot of other people and dogs, they're actually learning that there's a lot of value in other people and dogs. And to some degree that can be good, but we see a lot of times that creates problems, because now the dog has more reinforcement history with other people and dogs, which means they're less likely to listen to you. They're less likely to want to come when you call them. They're more likely to pull on leash because they want to go see the other things. They want to, maybe that leads to reactivity, right? When they're barking or lunging because they're frustrated that they can't get what they want. There's also a lot of dogs out there who aren't actually interested in other people or other people petting them. And when they are puppies and we're pushing that on them, a lot of times that can result in reactivity at a later date, because their trust has sort of been broken, where we've sort of been like, hey, my puppy feels weird about people and I'm going to force this issue on them. And we don't intend for that to happen, but it is what happens. And then the puppy can get really, distrusting, and it can create the issue. So when you have like two different types of dogs, generally speaking, well, we'll say three, and you have the puppies, like I said, who aren't really that interested in other people. And there's a few different exercises that you can do to kind of prevent issues from arising, but not letting a lot of people like come into their space and pet them when they don't want it. That would be really important. So puppies that aren't interested in people, definitely exposing them to people so that they are around people, but not having other people kind of barge in and try to pet them and stuff like that. It's really important to advocate for your dog. If you have a puppy who loves other people, it's sort of a similar situation. My dog already likes other people. I don't need to reinforce that further. So actually what I'm going to do is have my puppy more engaged with me around other people, because I already know he wants to go see people. That's built into him. And I would rather him actually learn to listen to me in a distracting environment when there are other people around. So I have to have more reinforcement than the other people will provide for him. You also have some dogs or puppies who are neutral, right? And so they could kind of go one way or the other. And again, those dogs that's what we're aiming for, right? With socialization, proper socialization, we really want neutrality, because neutrality is what allows your dog to just basically not care, like good or bad, right? If a dog is very overexcited to go see people, that's not going to bode very well for like taking him to patios, or, even like therapy dogs, like Shelley was saying, they can't be super excited. They can't be jumping on people. They can't be whining and barking. And if I have a dog who's maybe a little bit more timid or fearful, that's another big issue, right? It's going to be hard to have that dog stay at other places. It's going to be hard to take that dog places. It might even just be hard to live day by day with that dog. So true socialization is really about exposing them to sight, sounds, and surfaces. So you can get creative about this, right? With just taking your puppy out or your dog and exposing them to the world, right? Like loud noises, like trucks going by. You can even play sounds and stuff at home on your speakers. Like people will play fireworks sounds while they're feeding their dog. My husband watches a lot of like action movies, so it's never been an issue with us because we have like surround sound and it makes a lot of booming noises, right? And our dogs have always been very cool about noises and stuff because they've been exposed to that at a very young age. And again, circling back to the surfaces thing, I really think it's important for puppies, both mentally and physically, to be exposed to different types of surfaces, right? Like letting them walk on like unstable surfaces, jumping up on logs, walking on like pebbles, like different things like that, gravel, slippery floors, etc. All of that is like really, really important. So that's something I wanted to kind of get out of the way, because a lot of people do a lot of that socialization stuff with people and dogs, and it just kind of hurts them later, because then their dog is older, they've had a lot of reinforcement from like jumping on people or visiting with people or going to see other dogs, and then it gets really difficult to train that later. And the other thing about, while we're on that topic, puppies being exposed to dogs that you don't know is very risky, because the other dog could not like puppies. The other dog could teach your puppy, like he could bully your puppy, right? Or your dog, or your puppy could actually learn to become a bully, especially if they're exposed to a lot of other puppies. It's very common that that will kind of play out. It's much better to actually expose your puppy or dog to controlled situations with other dogs. So like, of course, reaching out to a trainer to work on that type of socialization is really key. If you have like family dogs who are like very well behaved, or their temperament really well, that's going to be a good route to go, instead of just like random dogs on the street. The other thing to consider with that is, when you are walking down the street, if your dogs are on leash, they're feeling very trapped, right? Because we do have to remember that they are predators. And if they are on a leash, they know they can't get away. And so they can feel a little bit insecure in those moments. And so inviting another dog into their space can cause problems for them in that way. The same way that like having people reach out and pet them can cause trust issues, especially for those dogs who are maybe a little bit more timid. And that sort of circles me back to this idea that like every dog is an individual. And so some dogs are going to be more social innately. Some dogs are going to be more timid genetically. And you can definitely help that with training and with following certain protocols, but also just like really honoring the dog that you have, and like understanding who your dog is as a being, right? And working with that. I'm not about like kind of making excuses for things in terms of like, oh, my dog like may have been abused in the past. Like, we have to move forward and try to help that dog now in the present, instead of holding on to that stuff in the past. But we also have to just recognize the dog we have. And a lot of that also comes from the breed we choose, right? So we were sort of talking about bulldogs, and bulldogs are pretty like, in the sense of like energy, they're kind of low maintenance, but they're also very high maintenance in the sense of their health issues, as Shelley was saying. So really knowing what type of dog you're getting is going to set you up for success. So like I mentioned, I have a Malinois. A Malinois is not really a breed that the average person should get. You need to spend a lot of time with these dogs, exercising them, working them. They are bred to bite, essentially, and they need an outlet for that type of thing. So even like hunting breeds, like there's a lot of breeds out there that people sort of get for the looks, and it's really important to know like, what was this dog bred for? What were they intended to do? Because every dog has a purpose. And then like, you don't have to obviously always do that exact activity, but you do have to think about that when you are training them and working with them, and just like recognizing like, maybe this behavior is stemming from these deep embedded genetics, and we're going to have to work with this instead of trying to work against it. So that is something I wanted to talk about, because it's very important. I got a question.
Emma, do you mind if we've got 2 questions for you. So do you mind if I just jump in here for a second?
Definitely.
So I don't know if you're going to touch on this later in your presentation, but someone asked what to do about a puppy constantly barking at everything. So that's kind of like, I know we're not there yet, but maybe we'll get to that in the future. And then we also have another question. What exercises can we do to work with leash reactivity? And if we are walking and another dog is leash reactive, what is the best thing to do?
Okay, great. So some of these questions, I forgot to say this at the beginning. There's a lot of these things that are probably not going to be able to be addressed over a Zoom call, because every dog is an individual, every handler is an individual. And something like leash reactivity is not really something I can speak on without knowing more. However, I will circle back to what I was saying earlier about like, why does leash reactivity start in the first place, right? It's usually either the dog really wants to go see something, and we've inadvertently reinforced that behavior by maybe they pull and we let them pull a little bit, right? Or maybe they pull and they want to go see a dog and we let them go see that dog. So they actually got reinforced for pulling, and then they develop this skill where they learn like pulling works, right? It works to get me what I want. You actually make the skill stronger. And then maybe one day you decide, oh, I don't actually want my dog to pull. Or maybe one day the dog pulls to another dog and something bad happens. The other dog is like a bit nasty or something happens, right? And then your dog actually has a negative experience. Your dog can learn, like, I want to pull to go see that dog. And you're not now letting it pull to go see that dog. And so they get frustrated and they might start barking. And then all of this, you know, repeats itself, and it can become worse and worse and worse. Or if your dog does have a bad experience, they might see another dog and go, hey, I don't like that other dog. I want it to go away. So the barking and stuff is a signal to say like, hey, go away. I want you to go away. The problem is the dog does go away. And so the behavior is reinforced, right? It's reinforced over and over because the dog barks, the dog goes away. And we see this too with like window watching, right? This is very common. You're walking down the street and there's dogs barking in the window. And then what happens is like, we go away. So the dog learns that when I bark, the thing goes away. And that's what they wanted, right? They might not even know that that's what they wanted, but it's what happens. It's a self-reinforcing thing over and over again. As for the puppy barking, again, I would have more questions about that, but that circles back again to this like engagement piece, which I will get to more of in a little bit. But that whole thing about like, if your puppy's barking a lot, like addressing like why. Are they wanting to go see dogs? Have they had too much exposure to dogs? Or maybe they haven't had enough exposure to dogs or things in the world, and they don't care enough about you. And that's why they're kind of outwardly focused. We want the dog more inwardly focused towards us. So hand feeding their meals can be really helpful with that. Fulfilling them through play. And I'm going to touch on this, like these are all like big topics I want to get into more. So I'll probably get to that now, but I think there's another question.
Yeah, we've got another question, Emma, from Cheryl.
Yeah.
I think the general idea is that the socialization was done incorrectly, and she wants to know, you know, when the dog has learned after, how you could correct that, and if you can correct that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we deal with a ton of leash reactive dogs every day. Like we see a lot of dogs around the year, like around 1 and 2 years old. We even train older dogs as well. It can definitely be worked on. Again, remembering that there is a genetic bandwidth for every single dog. Like for example, I'll say, this is not breed bias or anything, but we see a lot of German Shepherds who are leash reactive, right? It's part of who they are. It's part of like what they've been bred to be. They're a little bit guardy, protective, reactive. We can fix it, but it's still something that you probably are going to need a lot longer term maintenance for versus like a different type of dog that doesn't have that propensity as much, right? So different breeds, and I should even say like working breeds in general, like there's categories of breeds. Working breeds in general tend to have a little bit more of that propensity. Sometimes there's some like same-sex aggression in those dogs. That's something to recognize, like recognize that when you're getting this dog, and like that dog might not be suitable to go to dog parks. And just like, don't be upset about that. Just recognize it and realize you're going to have to do other things with that dog to fulfill them. But in terms of doing socializing in the wrong way, that there's no problem with that. We can just start now. So stop letting them meet dogs, stop letting them meet people for now. Focus really on having them interact with you. So I would like, if you're feeding out of a bowl, if you're free feeding the dog, which means like you just leave the kibble in the bowl all day, I would stop that right away. I would take that bowl away and I would start hand feeding them a lot for their meals. And you can be asking for tricks, you can be doing sits, you can be doing downs. I actually wanted to talk about a marker system. That's going to be really important. I don't want to get too into it because it's kind of complex. And again, it's hard to explain in this context. But definitely like, you know, if you are struggling, reach out to a professional trainer that can help you with that kind of thing. But really, again, thinking about the fact of like exposing your dog. So even like taking your dog on a car ride to like the grocery store and then like work them in the parking lot, you know, just like take them to a parking lot and then like play with them there, work them for some food, like get them to chase the food around in your hand, walk them around there. You're just kind of exposing them to different things and repeatedly doing that so that they get more and more comfortable with that type of thing. So like, you know, there's shopping carts and there's like cars moving around and people, and there's maybe other dogs, stuff like that. So that's going to just give them better exposure. If you have a really strong marker system, we can integrate that as well to help counter condition them. And again, that's where I didn't want to get too into this because it's a bit complicated, but A marker system is basically a way for you to communicate with your dog. So it's going to be able to communicate like, these are things I like and I want more of, and those are things I don't want and don't want more of. And a communication system is super important for that clarity piece, right? For the dog to understand what I want in life and what I don't want in life, and what you want more of and what you don't want more of. The markers themselves can be anything. Really typical one that people probably know a lot about is a clicker. So like I have a clicker here. This just makes a mechanical sound, like a click noise. They can be super, super useful. And we do a lot of reactivity training with a clicker, but there's a very specific way that we like to use them. And it's really intended to create more engagement towards the handler for the food with that clicker. And so like that also circles back to like that motivation piece. Motivation is really important to have from your dog, right? Like when their dog wants to go see something, like a human or another dog, or maybe it's a squirrel or a bunny or a leaf, there's all these different things. They're more motivated by that thing than they are by whatever it is you have. So we need to build that motivation. And that's why I said to like pick up the bowl. Don't let them just have free access to the food. Make sure they don't have free access to toys all the time, right? We want these things to be valuable, and we want that interaction to be with us. So in terms of like, this is biological fulfillment basically. So a lot of people also believe that, you know, I get a dog, I get to take it for like a 15-20 minute walk once, maybe twice a day. Maybe for some dogs that's sufficient, but for 99% of dogs, it's not. I know like my 15-year-old dog, he still needs to go for like a solid 30-minute like off leash run and then some, right? And he's 15 and he's a working breed. So really important to think again about like, what does your dog really need? If you are spending more time training or playing directly with your dog, you're going to tire them out a lot faster than like a 15 or 20-minute leash walk. It's going to be much more productive use of your time as well. So you're going to be building your bond. You're going to get more of that engagement where your dog cares more about you. And like I said, it'll be more tiring probably for your dog than just a leash walk. And so again, something I want to talk about a little bit later, but that biological fulfillment piece, there's so much that goes into that, right? Like again, knowing your breed, how to fulfill that breed or your dog in general, and doing proper play, which I will talk about, that all of that is just so important, right? Thinking about like, if I have a problem with a dog, where is this stemming from? You know, if I have a dog who's barking a lot, like maybe that dog is bored. Maybe they haven't been fulfilled enough. They haven't been exercised enough, or maybe they haven't been exercised in the right way. Or it could also be the opposite. Maybe they're overstimulated. So I see that with puppies a lot. I have a lot of puppies that have been overstimulated. They're not getting enough naps. Puppies need like 16 to 20 hours of sleep per day. And there's only 24 hours in a day. So think about how much sleep that is. And most people are just like running their puppies ragged because they think puppies have a lot of energy. And like they have energy in the sense that they're youthful, but they need so much sleep because again, think about how fast a puppy is growing. Like they are growing so fast. They need so much sleep and structured sleep. Like put them in a crate, let them rest. They really need that solid rest in order to be, you know, successful. Just like kids, if they don't take their naps, they get cranky. So with puppies, like that's when someone asked about puppy biting. Honestly, that's my number one recommendation is more crate naps, because most puppy biting is because they're overstimulated, they're overtired, they're a bit cranky, so they start biting. Puppy biting is very normal. It's honestly one of the only things I will say they generally grow out of. Most people ask me like, oh, will my puppy grow out of this? And I always say no. Most things they grow into. So things will get worse. But puppy biting is the only thing that generally goes away once they're done teething, right? And you're teaching them. They explore everything with their mouths. They don't have hands. They can't like do that. Even if you've ever been around toddlers, they put things in their mouth, right? That's how they explore. So a lot of times it's exploration, overtired, or they're just trying to play. And if that's the case, we can play and we can redirect to something more appropriate to bite that's not our flesh. There's a lot of tips and tricks out there to prevent biting, and sometimes they might work and sometimes they don't. So a really common one is to say like, ouch, and to like pull away, right? The problem with that, like if you did that with like a shepherd puppy, they're just like game on. Like they think it's time to play. Like they want to hurt you. They want to play. You're the squeaky toy now, right? Like, you know how dogs love to squeak toys? You've just become the squeaky toy. So some puppies that might work and some puppies it won't work. And that's something that's, I think, really important to think about with dog training is like every dog's an individual. And we're going to have to, again, consider the breed, consider the genetics, consider the lifestyle, and then kind of assess from there. And that's what a good trainer will do, is work with you on that. Maybe there's more questions. Someone is asking about barking at people and dogs walking by the house, jumping out the window and barking. Yeah, so we kind of talked about that, right? They go away, he stops barking because he was successful in making them go away. He was reinforced. So the barking made them go away, so he stops barking. It's like the typical like why dogs hate mailmen or mail people, mail persons, mail delivery people, because they come and the dog goes crazy, and then they leave, right? So it's just like this innate repetitive situation. And yeah, so in terms of making him stop, again, there's a lot of different things that go into that. I would definitely be going and addressing the dog, removing them from the situation, and then you can be rewarding for what you do want. So like we say, no, I don't want you to do this. Come over here, do this. Like a place command, a down, whatever, and then get them re-engaged with you for the food. And like pretty quickly, they can pattern things together where like they see the trigger, they might bark once or twice, but then they're like, oh wait, if I go over there, I'll get fed. That becomes more reinforcing to them. Yes, someone can ask a live question, I guess. That's fine.
Awesome. I've got Carol who has requested to ask a live question. So Carol, I've gone ahead and unmuted you. If you'd like to go ahead and ask Emma your question, feel free.
Okay, hi.
Hello.
This is Sugar, and she's a small Bolognese breed, and she's 10. She just lost, we just had to put our Gracie down 2 days ago.
Oh,
So how do you deal with loss?
Oh, well, that's a tricky question. Very sorry to hear about that. Honestly, I think every dog deals with it differently. I have heard, I haven't really had to deal with it myself. As you know, my dog's 15, so it's something that will be coming down the pipe for us at some point. I have heard different things. It's obviously too late for this, but I've heard that sometimes people let the dog like see the deceased dog and that can help. Honestly, I think just time, just like making sure to try to stay with your same schedule as best as possible is going to help her, give her some like one-on-one time. Maybe you go do something fun, like go for a little hike together. Some dogs probably just need to chill and rest though on their own. Like you're going to have to see what works best for her. Trying not to create any bad behaviors in this sense of like, if you feel really bad about it, I don't want you to maybe like project that onto her in the sense of like, if she doesn't need your coddling, then like that won't help. You know what I mean? So you don't want to create like separation anxiety, for example. So like trying to go about your business as normal, trying to like maybe spend that one-on-one time with her, do more fun and exciting things to get her out of the house. I think that would probably be my recommendation.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem. Again, sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We've got another question in the chat, Emma. It's my 8-month-old miniature Australian Shepherd is very vocal and barks when he is excited and also when he is frustrated. When you say no to him, how can I change that habit?
Okay, yeah, so great example actually here. Herding breeds are very, very vocal. Like very vocal, especially Australian Shepherds. That's kind of what they do. They bark, they get frustrated. I would really examine like, what is he getting frustrated about? When you say no to him, does it actually have any meaning? You know, like we have to really examine the fact that like dogs don't understand English. So a lot of the time we say no. And again, this circles back to that clarity piece. Like maybe he's unclear about your no. Like maybe he's not sure, like, what does that mean? It's somehow it's been reinforced because he's continuing to do the behavior. So it really, if he's vocal and barks when he's excited, that might be something that's just who he is. He likes to bark. You can definitely teach him to bark on command. And then, you know, alternatively, he can learn to be quiet on command. I would try to like use some of that frustration into like a game of play. Carefully not to reward the behavior, but if he's 8 months old, miniature Australian Shepherd, he probably has a lot of energy and maybe it's not being fostered, it's not being used. So I want to talk about this actually, because I think it's going to help a lot of people. If you learn how to properly play with your dog, it can help a lot of things, because you're going to be able to, like I said, tire them out faster, fulfill them better, and bond with them. So making sure that like he has exercised enough, but also not exercised too much. Again, maybe he's overstimulated. If he's barking and stuff like that, maybe it's time to give him a little timeout in the crate. Maybe you need to like put him on a leash, guide him away, ask him to go in the crate and just be quiet and kind of let him chill out a little bit. That could be one option. As for play, I want to kind of go into this a little bit. So I want everyone to think about play. Play is basically mimicking hunting, right? That's why play exists, right? When you think about like wild animals, like little baby wild animals, they are playing and they are learning how to like take down prey and hunt and kill things basically, right? It sounds kind of like gruesome, but that's the truth. So when we think about that, there's 6 aspects to this play, right? There's 6 stages. So the first one would be to search, right? They are searching for their prey. So like we can really tap into this with like scent detection work. We can like hide the dog's toy, have them go find it. If you're going to do any type of game like that, I recommend you start with like really simple, right? Like maybe put your dog in a sit and then go put the toy like just around the corner. And then you say like, go get it. And they go and get it. Or you can even have someone hold the dog back, right? And create a little bit of that frustration and excitement. And that's a nice way to actually toggle that frustration, or sort of use that frustration to your benefit, right? Like it's innate in the dog, so let's use it and harness it into what we want. So you can hold them back and then search, let them release and go search. Scatter feeding, so like sometimes I'll scatter kibble in the grass, and that's a really nice like natural way for them to kind of get a little bit of independence from you, because they're hunting, they're out in the grass, they're hunting, and it's like a nice little brain game, because they're just like, they're sniffing in the grass, they're hunting for their kibble. It's a nice little fulfillment exercise. So search, that's number 1. Stalk is number 2. And you guys might see this if you just ever watch dogs play, or you think about like lions on the savannah, they like creep and crouch, right? They're stalking their prey. You can do this with your dog. You want to be careful about it, because it's a little bit, you're sort of tapping into this idea of like resource guarding. So we don't stalk them while they're trying to eat. But if you have a toy and you're playing a game and you both are aware that you're playing a game, the rules of the other stuff don't apply. So we can be stalking them. If they have the ball, we can be like creeping up on them, really slow movements. Sometimes the dog might stalk us if we have the toy, and just like kind of play with that a little bit, that idea. If number 3 is chase. And so chase is a very obvious one. A lot of us know, like you throw the ball, they chase it, right? Or maybe they like to be chased. You can kind of tell which play styles your dog likes by watching them play with other dogs. So throwing the ball, they run after it. You can also run after it. Like that can be part of the game, is you guys can race to get to the ball. Once the dog gets the ball, you can run away from him. Maybe he'll run away from you. That happens a lot, kind of annoying because you're not able to like play with them very well. That's really common, is a lot of dogs want to like take the toy away and skip to the last step, which I'll talk about in a second. So chase, the 4th one is to fight. And that would be like your classic picture of like tug, right? You're both tugging on the toy. One of you is trying to win. And that's something to think about, is like every game has an objective. And in tug, the objective is to win the toy. So too many people kind of just like hand the toy to the dog, and they're kind of like, oh, you're tugging, whatever. And they don't either let the dog win, or they are just like too easy and like giving it to the dog, just like shoving it in the dog's mouth. And we talk about this in dog sport a lot. There's no suicidal rabbits. So like rabbits don't just like jump into the wolves' mouths. It doesn't happen. They run away. And inciting that prey response is what like is exciting for the dog. So like if you have a toy, like whipping that toy away and making the dog really try to chase it and catch it is going to be much more fun for them than just like shoving it in their mouth, right? Like whip it away, they have to chase it, and then make them miss it again, and they have to chase it some more. And then maybe like you let them grab it, and then you tug a bit. And if they give really good effort, like let them win, like if they're pulling really hard, like let them win. And if you're just starting to teach your dog this, like ask for very little, right? Or expect very little. Like maybe they just pull a little bit and you go like, oh, wow, like you're so strong. When you're playing a really good game with your dog, you need to be a very good actor. And like, you got to really kind of make them feel strong, you know, it's a confidence building exercise. You know, a lot of the play stuff, we can work with really fearful dogs on how to bring them up by using play. Okay, sorry. So fight, classic tug, exactly. Some dogs like to really wrestle. So like you can get a little physical with your dog, like, you know, like pat him on the back and like shove him away from you, maybe grab his paw. Like some dogs love that physical contact. So don't be shy to use that. Some dogs really like conflict. A lot of our bulldogs, bull breeds, they like conflict. They like fight. So really use that to your advantage, you know, when you're playing with them. And then we have celebrate. And celebrate is, you know, you see the animal, they catch their prey and they're maybe like walking around, prancing around, they're happy, they're maybe rolling in the grass, they're circling around, they're celebrating their victory. And that's a really nice thing. You guys can do that together with your dog. You can have them on a leash and you can just run them around and be like, yeah, good job, you won. Maybe you can just sit with them if they have the toy and just like pet them, like, good job, you did it. Make sure if you are in a celebrate mood or moment, you don't just like steal it in that moment, right? You want to like restart the game. So maybe you're like petting them and then you might be like, okay, you ready? And then you go, and then you can steal it away from the dog. And the last one is consume. And consume is that typical, they're eating the toy or eating the prey, right? And a lot of dogs, especially puppies, they like, when you try to play with them, they take the toy, they run away, and then they just start chewing on it. And that's obviously very difficult for us to work with, but it's very natural for them. So if we show them all these other components, it's going to be a lot easier for them to kind of toggle between them, right? They don't know how much they might enjoy the other ones because they don't do it enough. So you got to really like tap into these things and show them in order for them to enjoy them more, because the consume is just like, that's a survival instinct, right? They're just like eating because that's what they're supposed to do. It's genetically ingrained. So we got to show them the other ones as well. And really foster those things. But doing all these different aspects of play and really working on it and like enjoying the moment with your dog, it's going to be like so much more fun for you than like structured like training. And it's also going to be, like I said, really great for your bond and your relationship and all of that like engagement piece. And again, watching, if your dog does play with other dogs, you know, you can see how do they like playing. Like maybe they really like to be chased or stalked, or maybe they like to do one or the other. And like, you can use that to your advantage because we are a different species, right? So trying to like play with them in a way they understand is really valuable. I think we probably got more questions on that.
Thank you, Emma. So we have a question from Eric. He's got his hand raised. Eric, you can go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You had mentioned separation anxiety. And if this is something you're going to be getting into later, I'll defer to that. But you know, one of the questions, and I'm sure I'm not the only one with this on their mind, but my dog never had separation anxiety, but now I've been at home with him for a year and a half. And we're not exactly sure what return to office is going to look like, but that's something that's going to happen eventually. And I'm just wondering if there's any suggestions you might have on kind of preemptively preparing the dog for when I'm not around 24/7 anymore. What kind of tips or tricks we could do? Because I'm here all day with him. So any suggestions would be much appreciated.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. You know what? It wasn't on my list, but it should have been, because it's something that in the last year and a half, I've seen so much of it, because of course, everyone's working from home. And even my job as a dog trainer is like, I have my dogs with me all the time. And even I noticed the difference in them, because they were like, oh, you're really here all the time. And we also saw other behavior problems happening, a lot more resource guarding, a lot more like bitey situations. And truthfully, like, I think it's really similar to like when you're working from home, like if you have a roommate or a spouse, everyone's home all the time, all of a sudden, like that is hard on you because you're always in each other's space. And it's the same for the dogs. Like they need their downtime and their alone time, just like we do, right? And even if they don't think they need it, they do. It's really healthy and important for them to have time away from you. So my recommendation for now would be to definitely work on that. Like just go outside for a walk without your dog. Seems weird, but just do it, you know? More crate time. Definitely leading up to going back to work, I would be like ensuring that I'm still crating my dog even while I'm home. And if you don't crate them, maybe you put them in another room, maybe you have a bed command, something that's just keeping them away from you, making sure that they're comfortable with that concept, and just like working up to that slowly, because at this point, if you haven't been maintaining that for now, it's going to be a big adjustment period, right? Dogs are so adaptable though. Like we're very lucky that they're very, very adaptable. So sometimes that separation anxiety stuff can be a little, like, we have separation anxiety from our own dogs. Like, I have separation anxiety from her. I bring her, like, I travel all around. She comes with me, like, across the country. I'll drive everywhere and bring her with me, right? To dog events, I should specify. But it's really important just to teach them that skill of being alone. And I would crate training or crating was on my list because it's something I think a lot of people think is just for puppies and just for house training of like potty accidents, but it's actually a very important skill to have because your dog's worst day will be spent in a crate. Like if they ever break a limb or have to go to the vet, they're gonna be crated. If you ever have to travel, maybe they have to go on an airplane, anything like this, they're gonna have to be crated. And I think that's already gonna be a stressful event. If they're also stressed by having to be confined, we're just exasperating it. So that skill of being able to be confined in a crate is something I think that's super important for people to maintain. Even if you don't crate your dog all the time, something to just maintain and touch up on, right? So people who are going back to work, I would like maybe start that process again. Even just having your dog in another room, making sure they're not following you everywhere, following you to the bathroom. That's part of dog ownership, but helping teach them to be comfortable on their own and comfortable in their own skin is a really important skill. So if you need like help with any of that stuff, definitely again, reach out to a trainer. But just starting to do that crate training stuff again, feeding them their meals in their crate, or making sure that they're really tired. You've done a lot of play, you've worked them really hard, then maybe calm them down a bit. We don't want to put them away when they're at their peak arousal. So we got to simmer them down, then we can put them away, right? Have them be in their crate for a little bit, have them just take a nap and chill. Like my dogs, I took them out for a hike this morning and then came home and two of my dogs are crated and then the other two were just chilling because they've earned their rights. Like they're, that's the old man. I don't know if you can see him down there on the couch, that gray blob. And then there's Cricket right there. But they still get crated if I'm not home. Sometimes like I mix it up, right? So don't stop crating just because your dog isn't having accidents. It's a safety thing. If your dog ever comes to board with us, we really, really want them to be crated for safety. Being in a new environment, there's like risks involved with that, of course. Like we don't want them chewing anything. It's all a safety thing for me. So for the separation anxiety, definitely I would work on that. Like more alone time, more separate time, just starting to like teach that, give them a chew bone away from you, different things like that.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer, Emma. So we've got another question here. She is asking, her Wheaton Terrier mini poodle mix gets very excited when she comes home from work. Hubby is home with her and she gets way overexcited when I come home. Is there a strategy to make my coming home less exciting?
Yes, that's a great question. So again, 5 months old, really, really young. I would probably, so the husband is already home. So if you're coming home at a consistent time, that's generally the same, I would probably have that puppy crated. 5 months old should still be crated a fair amount of time if they're not being supervised. My rule of thumb with puppies in general is kind of like, I'm either like playing with you, training you, walking you, or you're in the backyard, or you're in your crate. Like that's it. They're not just like free roaming the house. Not until like maybe 8-10 months, depending on the dog. We start teaching a little bit more liberty skills as we go. But for this puppy in general, I would either have the husband like put her on a leash, and you should totally ignore the puppy. Like have the husband put her on a leash and maybe just like keep her away. Maybe he can be feeding her, or she could go in the crate for when you arrive home, and you just totally ignore her. Like don't make a big deal out of it. Don't get all excited with her if that's something that you don't want. Like this is very much like a general thing, a personal preference thing. Like for me, I don't really mind if my dogs get excited when I come home, but that's because I know I can just be like, okay, like calm down. That's enough, right? Like we're done here. Yeah, I love you. We're excited. Cool. And then it's over. If it's impeding like your life and it's causing a lot of anxiety for your dog, that's a problem. But there's no rule that says like your dog has to be calm all the time, right? I think that's something too a lot of trainers really drill in is like must be calm all the time. And like, yeah, I think calmness is really important, especially if you're having behavior problems. Like a dog who's super overexcited can't think clearly. Like if you come home and your puppy's like freaking out, barking and jumping, like they're not going to be able to hear your commands or hear you or calm down. So preventing it in the first place is going to be important. So having her on a leash, or even like you come home, husband goes and gets her on a leash, maybe starts feeding her, teaching her to just like calm down. I think that would be a good way to address that. I think we missed one too. I think someone said, what do we do with a dog that is hostile with the rest of the dogs, does not like to play with dogs and keeps barking? That is a little bit too vague for me to kind of get into. There are dogs out there who don't like other dogs. Totally okay, totally normal. Lots of dogs who are not dog park dogs, who don't need to go to the dog park, who shouldn't go to the dog park, who don't want to interact with other dogs. That is fine. To be honest, like, I think that's great. So I just wouldn't let them in those situations. If it's your own dogs and you have one dog who's having issues with the other dogs, that's something that definitely needs a professional trainer. So I would reach out to someone for that. There's a lot more questions. And yeah, okay, more questions. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, Emma, we can probably take like 2 more questions here. So I've got one. When we head out for a walk, my guy loves to grab his leash and pull. How do I stop this? Is it usually only at the start of the walk to cross? It is usually only at the start of the walk to cross the street.
Yeah, okay. So again, this is a little bit of an arousal issue. Play can help with this. Like if you teach your dog, if you engage more with your dog in actual tug, it can help to like get some of that out. A lot of people think that like, if I tug with my dog, it'll make them aggressive or it'll make them do the thing more. Or like if I make them chase a flirt pole or do a certain sport like barn hunt. Barn hunt is a sport where we like hunt for rats. They're safe, they're in tubes, it's all good. But that's not entirely true. Sometimes you're just like fulfilling that need, right? You're fulfilling the need, so then they're less likely to seek it out outside of that situation. Generally, I would probably just like, prevent it by, taking it out of their mouth calmly, continue walking. Maybe you trade for like food or a toy, something like that. Maybe if your dog is really excited when they start the walk, you maybe go in the backyard first, play with them, then you go for your walk, making sure the dog is calm before you start the walk, like really working on that engagement piece with you. But again, it's kind of something that, if you need leash walking help, you probably need a help from a trainer one-on-one in person, because that's a really tough thing to kind of deal with. Like I have a technique of like pulling the leash out and then like holding it above the dog's head so that they can't really grab it again, not making a big deal out of it, but just sort of making it non-negotiable. Like every time they bite the leash, I remove it, we continue on. They bite it again, I remove it, continue on, that kind of thing.
Okay, folks, I think we have time for one more question for you, Emma. So this one is from Cheryl. I have an 8-month-old Rottweiler. Is it a good idea to take a bone, for example, away from her after giving it to her to help with being possessive about certain items?
I'm super glad that she asked this question. This is like a great question. So when we're dealing with dogs and puppies and all of that, a lot of people think that you should be putting your hand in their food bowl and taking the food away and taking the bones away. And all that does is creates conflict. So you're actually teaching your dog that like, you should be worried because I'm going to come take your stuff, right? And that creates conflict. And I see a lot of dogs who actually become aggressive for that or resource guard their items because every time they get something, person comes and takes it away. And they go like, what the hell, that sucks. So especially with a Rottweiler, I can't stress this enough, a Rottweiler naturally has a resource guarding tendency. That is not a good idea. So I would be really careful with that. I would really try maybe like trading for things. If it were me, I would like let my dog have their bone in their crate. I would just be like, you just have that in your crate. No one's going to bother you. You're safe. No other dogs aren't going to bother you. Kids aren't going to bother you. We see that with kids, like they go up to the dog and the dog growls or bites, right? Because they're scared that the kid's going to take it or grab them or something. So giving your dog a safe space to enjoy their bone or their chew or their food, really, really important. I definitely don't agree with like touching the food and all of that stuff. This is why I like actually hand feeding as well, because there's no conflict really involved. But definitely I wouldn't be taking the bone away. If you need to get it away, I would do some training to teach the dog to like drop it or out it or recall them away maybe, stuff like that, or try to trade for something else. If you do have a dog with a problem with resource guarding high value items like that, don't give them those high value items and then seek out help from a trainer, but just stop giving the bones and stuff like that, unless it's something that they can like fully consume, and then just do it in the crate. And then you don't have a problem with that whole like conflict issue.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. So
No
folks,
worries.
I think we're gonna wrap that up. Emma, is there anything else that you wanted to end with before we wrap things up, or
I don't know. I didn't feel like I got through all my topics, but I felt like we had really good questions.
it went by
so-
so fast? There were so
It
many
did
good
go really
questions. So
fast.
thank you so much, everyone.
And I have an Instagram account, and I do like ask me anything a lot on there. So I'm really accessible on there, and I'll post like ask me questions every once in a while. So you guys can tune in there, and if you have questions, you can post them on there, and I'll do a little like video reply. But definitely like, you know, if you do need help, reach out for training. This is definitely like, you know, it is my income, it's our livelihood. So you know, we're not going to give away everything for free on Instagram all the time, but I do like to help every now and again with Ask Me Anything questions.
Awesome, Emma. Well, thank you so much, Emma. And thank you everyone for joining us today and for all the little doggies. I love to see that. So thank you so much, guys. This event was recorded, and the recording will be available in the coming days on the AC Hub On Demand website. We'll share a link to that in the chat now. This is also a great place to check out all of our other virtual events that we host throughout the year. The AC Hub hosts a variety of virtual events every month. For more information, please visit the Algonquin College Student Support Services events calendar and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Again, we'll share a link to those in the chat now. And that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Emma.
Having me. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Good day.